Hey everybody, it's Brooke with Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. I'm very excited to come live with you guys tonight. We have a very special live event that we are promoting this week for Saturday, the 25th at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. Many of you know me as a Facebook cook, and that is one of the things that I absolutely love to do, but my heart lies in recipe development. So I've been cooking since I was around 6 years old, as many of you know, and one of the things that I've always loved to do is share information about gadgets and recipes and how to make your life easier, all while cooking with whole foods that are locally sourced. Scratch-made cooking is something that my foundations, like many of yours, was built on with our mothers and our grandmothers, and it's very much recipes are heirlooms. They're things that we hand down from one generation to the next. Just like that good old cast iron skillet, recipes are meant to be shared and honed to make your own. So you'll hear me say a lot of the times that whenever I share a recipe, it's really just to get you started and get your wheels turning, because that's one of the things that I love to do. I love to develop new recipes. Being from the great state of Alabama over the last 6 years, I've had the distinct privilege to work with a lot of our farmers. Last fall, I was able to go and meet a lot of local farmers on our peanut harvest tour, and I have done multiple things with entities here with cattlemen's and with the Alabama Farmers Federation. And I'm very proud this May for Memorial Day to be representing our great pork producers of Alabama, and they have asked me to develop a recipe for good old pork loin. We're going to talk about all the ingredients that you're going to need if you want to cook along with me on Saturday morning to turn this, and this is a half pork loin, into something fancy and beautiful and something that your family will enjoy on Memorial Day or any day of the week. That's one of the things that I like to do, is to highlight fresh, locally sourced ingredients that can be found in your own home state. And for us, it is the great state of Alabama, and we are honored and privileged to be sharing this recipe with all of you, and we hope that you will get some pork on your fork this Memorial Day. So tonight we're not going to be with you very long. We're just going to talk about some of the things that you'll need and some of the ingredients. Now it looks like I have a lot of stuff here, but most of this stuff is pantry staple ingredients that you probably already have. There's going to be very few things that you're going to need to go run out and buy. That's one of the things that I like to do, is I like to show people that they can pretty much cook with what they have on the fly, and that's what we're going to do. For me, Memorial Day is the kickoff of summer. So what goes best with pork is fruit, right? A lot of people think about apples or peaches or things like that, but we're going to be highlighting the blueberry in this recipe. So we're going to talk about some of the equipment and some of the things that you need, and it's all very simple. It's going to seem like a lot of steps, but it's not really. A lot of this can be done ahead of time. We're just going to be doing it together on Saturday morning. So you're going to need like a stick of butter. It can be salted, it can be unsalted. It just does not matter. What you have is going to be your best option. So a stick of butter, and then we're going to be using the zest and the juice of 1 to 2 lemons. It just depends on how big they are. So I always say you err on the side of caution and get more than what you need. So I have 2 probably medium-sized grocery store lemons allotted for this recipe that we're going to be doing on Saturday. We're also going to be using minced garlic. And if you've watched me very long, you know I like to cheat a little bit and buy this garlic that's already minced, that's packed in olive oil. But if you want to take the extra step and mince your own, that's fine too. If you do opt to use garlic powder, you're going to use like for a tablespoon of fresh, you're going to use a teaspoon of dried, and we'll talk a lot about that tonight and on Saturday, because we're also going to be using fresh rosemary and dried rosemary. So you'll notice this recipe is a great example of how you do that. Generally, fresh herbs are not as strong as dried herbs. So if your recipe calls for a tablespoon of a fresh herb, you're going to supplement it or substitute it with a teaspoon of the dried herb. And that's an easy way to remember that, because a lot of recipes call for one or the other, and that's a real easy way. It's 1 for 1, tablespoon, teaspoon. But this recipe is going to be using both. So dried rosemary, it can either be crushed, it can be powdered, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then a little fresh. And if you didn't have access to fresh, you can use this in place. We just won't use nearly as much. Salt, good old salt, good old pepper, you know, those simple is best. And we use just a salt and pepper combination on this. And I have a handy dandy little mixture of equal parts of salt and pepper right here that I keep, because we use this to crust a lot of things, and you'll see us do that on Saturday as well. We're also going to be cheating a little bit and using some blueberry preserves. So you don't have to make your own. We're going to make a glaze. So if you wanted to make your glaze ahead of time, you can also pack that up and use that in place of the blueberry preserves. But we like to reserve the glaze that we're making for this for the whole pork loin. And then fresh blueberries, you're going to need a lot of those. You're going to need about 4 cups of those. For me, blueberries mean summer, and this recipe is our kickoff to summer, so that's why we're using the blueberry that complements our pork loin very well, and it highlights 2 of our Alabama grown farmed products. And of course, the star of the show is going to be our pork loin. Here I have a boneless pork loin. This guy is about 3 pounds. You can get a half like I've gotten here, or you can get a whole. If you wanted to go super fresh when this video is over, head over to sweetgrownalabama.org and put in your zip code and the product you're looking for, like pork, and you can find locally sourced pork for your blueberry glazed pork loin that we're going to be making on Saturday. So that's real interesting. If you're in the great state of Alabama like I am, that sweetgrownalabama.org is a fantastic resource, not just for pork, but for even blueberries. So those are some really easy and really great ways to find that. Most of your markets this time of year will have the pork loin already. And I'll just be honest with you, this is a beautiful cut of meat, but what makes it even better is that gorgeous fat cap on top. And we're not going to trim that away. We're going to use that to our advantage on Saturday to help keep this tender and delicious, because fat equals flavor. Now, just a few minor, but not so minor ingredients that we're going to have. We're going to be using just a little bit of sugar because we're making our own glaze, and sugar is a good part of making your own glaze. A little water, a little avocado oil just to help us get a nice sear on our pork loin, and some white wine vinegar. If you don't have white wine vinegar, you can use regular white distilled vinegar in place of this. I would not use a red wine vinegar or anything else. I would use a light vinegar like this, because we're only using the sugars from the vinegar to bring out the flavors of the blueberry, so you don't want any competing flavors with that like you might find in red wine vinegar. So there are a couple of little substitutions that you can make, but in my opinion, the vinegar is one that you need to keep either the white wine or just regular white distilled vinegar. Now, that is it for the ingredients. It's real simple. I don't think that there's anything too specific in here that would be too hard for you to find. What we'll do the day of, if you did want to cook along with us, we will post a link to the recipe so that you can go and print out your nice printable recipe card, so that way you don't have to refer back to the video to see what step you wanted to double check that you may have missed something or whatever. Now, I don't mind. You can view the video, because we're going to, after we go live on Saturday morning, we're going to have it on our wall so you can refer to it. And also in our recipe card, there is a link to another pre-recorded video. So we're real proud of this recipe, so we're showing it off in several different ways, and those are just a couple. But the printed recipe is free to you, and it can be found at thebutteredhome.com on Saturday morning, and I will post a link to it here on my Buttered Home page. If you're watching us on Facebook, it'll appear on the Buttered Home page here, and if you're watching us on YouTube, it will be on our community page there, a direct link to the recipe so that you can go and print your free recipe card so that you'll have it for Saturday, and you'll have it anytime that you want it, and it's absolutely free to you. This is something that fills my cup, and I love doing this. And one of my most favorite things is for people to cook along with me. Now, I'm going to cheat a little. I'm going to have one already made so that I can spend the majority of my time with you guys on Saturday going through the ins and outs of the prep of the recipe. Because when you bake something like this beautiful pork loin, you know, the magic happens in all the things that we do to prepare it to cook. I'm not going to be standing over an open fire cooking this like it's the 1800s. Although sometimes I wish I could do that. That's a skill on a whole nother level. But these days I have a nice oven with a nice constant temperature that'll take care of that for me. So the magic happens in what we do with all of these things to turn it into what we want to turn it into. And I've got some fabulous tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you on how to make this already delicious cut of meat even better and just a little bit fancy pants. Y'all know I like to fancy stuff up using locally sourced ingredients, and that's what we're going to be doing. Now, equipment wise, a lot of times cooks will tell you, oh, it's these pantry staple ingredients, but you got to have like a fancy ricer or things like that. We're going to go over the equipment list just so it's full disclosure that you won't be caught needing something that you weren't prepared for. And if you are a regular of mine, you know that even if I do use a special tool or a bowl or whatever, I'm always going to give you that option of something, if you don't have that, what you can use instead. But this one's real easy. All you need is a couple of good bowls. You need a spatula and a whisk. You need a boiler. And you need a baking dish. And most everybody I know has a boiler and a baking dish. And if you didn't have a spatula, you could use a wooden spoon, or you could use just a regular old tablespoon. Those are your alternatives for your spatula. Same with the whisk. I believe in having a good, especially one of these like I use, it's a flat whisk, but you know what works just as good? And that's a fork. So no special equipment required for that one. The only other things that we're gonna like for you to have is gonna be some aluminum foil, because we're gonna make a tent for this so that we can lock in the flavor from that glaze that will help circulate and keep all that moisture in our pork loin and keep all that flavor in too. And maybe some wax paper and parchment paper, because not only are you getting a recipe for this delicious Alabama grown pork loin, but you're also going to be learning how to make a compound butter, and you're gonna also be learning how to make your very own fruit glaze, which can be used in several applications, like a compound butter. You can put it in a jar, keep it in the fridge, and eat it like jelly or jam. It's not shelf stable, so we're not canning it, but if you only wanted to come back to this recipe to make a blueberry compound butter, a blueberry and herb compound butter, and to make a blueberry glaze, then you can do that too, because you're getting 3 recipes in one. I love doing double and triple duty, and that's what I've gotten to do with this one. So just to recap, you're not going to need anything special. You may not have blueberries or lemons or even a pork loin laying around, but tomorrow's Friday, and if you did want to cook this delicious recipe along with me, you do have time tomorrow to go out and get these. This is a wonderful and tender cut of meat, and it's so versatile. And one of the things that people don't know about pork loin is that it can totally be cooked and prepped in the same manner as beef, like steak, cuts of beef like steak. You can eat it at a medium rare temperature where you have that warm, delicious pink center, and it's perfectly safe. We'll talk a lot about that on Saturday, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to be cooking this guy till it's about 145 degrees internal temp. Now, if you don't already, it's nice to have that internal thermometer. Most of all the cooks I know have some version of this. This one is digital, but you can get the ones really inexpensive at your grocery store that have the round. It has just a round gauge on the top, and you just pop it in the meat and you can tell what temperature it is. I think there's a lot of gadgets out there and a lot that you don't have to have, but if you're going to cook any kind of protein, an internal thermometer is a good one. So that would be one thing that I would suggest that you have, especially if you didn't want to overcook this guy. And in my opinion, and probably the opinion of lots of other people, at 145 with that warm pink center, that is preferable for us. And if you've never cooked it that way, I urge you to do that. Now, it can be cooked to a higher temperature if you don't like the warm pink center, but if you're open to trying that, that's one of the things that's very important for us to show you, excuse me, is that this can be cooked in that same manner and enjoyed just like you would a fine cut of steak. And we can do it and do it safely. And I dare to say it would rival a medium rare steak any day. I sure do. Big D might disagree with me, but we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. So we hope that you will join us Saturday morning to put some pork on your fork. We are doing this in association with our friends over at Alabama Farmers Federation. We'll link their website here, and our friends at the Alabama Pork Producers. For great pork ideas and recipes, you can find out all you need to know at pork.org. And don't forget, if you wanted to find your own locally sourced pork, beef, blueberries, anything like that, and you're in the great state of Alabama with me, be sure and head over to our friends' website at sweetgrownalabama.org, and you can simply find whatever you want local to you by entering in your zip code. These are all of our friends and our partners. We're in association with them to do this recipe, and we're all very proud of it. And we want to all make sure that for Memorial Day, and really any day, that you put some pork on your fork. So we will see you Saturday morning. Invite a friend, share this video, and we would appreciate seeing y'all here bright and early to get ready with us here in the Messy Kitchen. From all of us here, we sure love y'all. Bye.